Happy Friday, everybody. I'm Nick Slavic. I'm the proprietor of the Nick Slavic Painting and Restoration Company. I'm also the host of this show, Ask a Painter Live. It's a weekly live Facebook show where I use my 2 decades of experience as a craftsman and an entrepreneur to answer any questions. If I don't have the answers, the largest, best community of craftspeople out there are in with this show. I see Chris Shank is in the bullpen down below. I can see him in his screen. I'm going to bring him up here in a second. We're going to talk about 3 awesome things today. Number one, the PCA contractor question of the week is about proper job site setup. And I'm going to take you around this job. It's in the final stages of a popcorn ceiling texture removal. My guys are frantically getting this ready for paint. And then Chris Shank will be popped up for that one. And then we're going to talk about the most important thing that painting companies can do in the United States to raise the standard of our industry, which is job costing. And we're going to talk more specifically about 1-person paint companies versus 10-person paint companies. And this, again, is under the theme of 2020 is all about mastering the basics. I am a firm believer that after all my years in this trade, people try to do amazing things, and we do amazing things. But if we were to go back a little bit, slow down, master all the basics, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit out there. And I'm going to spend a little bit on every show talking about industry benchmarks, industry standards, and job costing. And every time we're going to take a little different approach at it. And as always, you guys can type in your questions, comments, and topic suggestions over there. So let's bring in the great and powerful Chris Shank for the PCA contractor question of the week. Chris Shank. Oh, look at that beautiful mug.
What's up? How you guys doing?
That is an OG mug, man. You have one of the first runs.
I love it. I love it. Are they not looking like this anymore?
Funny you would ask that. Can you see the upper corner of the screen up here with that beautiful face in black and white?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So no promises, but there will be a new series of mugs coming out. It may or may not have that on it. So.
Oh, really? Wow. That's awesome.
We'll see, man. Hey, don't laugh at me.
That is going to be awesome. So it wouldn't have Nick Slavic. It would just have your face?
It would have a beautiful. Oh, you broke up just a little.
Oh, it's frozen.
Sorry, this will take just a second, guys.
Okay. Good.
Oh, back.
Hank.
Oh, man, there you are. Okay, yes. So lots of special surprises coming at Expo. I will be debuting something really cool as well that may or may not have to do with, I'm trying to get my bearings here, that face. So, yeah.
Nice. Okay.
We should probably talk the reason you're here for, because it's Friday. We all got stuff to do. So Chris Shank, PCA, Paint Contractors Association question of the week.
Okay, here it is. What are some of your best practices for setting up a job, as you are going to walk us through today?
Yes, absolutely. So like I said, we are on the final stages. These guys are on the final stages of a popcorn ceiling removal. We got 1,000 square feet, give or take, where they've been working on it this week. We removed it all. We edged it. We repaired the drywall, skim coated twice. They sanded, and now they're cleaning, prepping, and they're getting ready to spray the ceiling paint on here. So I'll walk you around the job site here.
Cool.
And we'll show you what's going on. We'll give you a good perspective here. So we got, you can see drywall mud here. They popped a bunch of can lightings in, so that sort of was the impetus for this. There was actually a wall here, about another 8 feet of wall coming out. They removed the wall, and we patched in drywall, taped over it, and then mudded. So that's a nice improvement. It opens up this kitchen here behind me. You can see that, especially when you're doing not only drywall, but popcorn removal, dust is an issue. So you can see these guys have sealed up the job site completely.
Nice.
And we have whatever furniture we couldn't move of the clients. You can see that plastic goes on it first, and then we use super heavy canvas to weigh down all the plastic and just keep the dust off it like that. And you can see on a normal painting site, we would probably take this kitchen island or a place right next to it and set up all our tools and totes. But because it's so dusty and they're going to be spraying here, we actually moved all of the totes to the garage. So I'm going to walk you through there.
Cool.
You can see.
How many people you got on site there helping you?
Say it again.
How many people you got on site helping you?
Yeah, so we actually have two. We have a Joe who's heading up this job site, who's the main popcorn remover and skim coater. We have Cowboy Josh. Josh is our cowboy. He's here. He's putting in overtime today, helping him. And then we actually have a brand new recruit, Nathan. You can see the one ununiformed guy because we're still waiting on painting pants. He's the rogue guy walking around. But this is his first week, and Joe gave him about 20 minutes of instruction on popcorn removal, and Nathan actually stripped this entire ceiling himself.
Oh,
so he did a great job this week. So it's a real testament to the decent human beings and the apprenticeship program too. So, all right, I'll take you guys out into the garage. Oh yeah, one final thing here. Dust, we seal up everything. We don't even take a chance. It's just nothing gets out. Downstairs too, hermetically sealed, as they say. Same thing with entry door, and also we want to keep dust out of the baseboards, so we sealed up all the baseboards. Also, all the flooring in this place is going to get replaced, and normally we like the flooring out first, and sometimes we even have the flooring replaced, but the timeline didn't work out, and this is a really good client of mine, so I wanted to make sure we kept him on timeline. So client was nice enough to heat up his garage for us and give us his third stall here, so you can see all the nice stuff right here. So lots of extra sanding equipment. We got baker scaffolding, drywall fans, but really it's just a couple, totes of tools. Everything kind of kept out here to keep it clean too, so yeah. Oh, and client was nice enough too. He's got his little table set up here. He got us all pizza today too.
Oh,
client got time from work and came back and we got pizza. So yeah, it was awesome, man.
Take care of you guys. That is so awesome.
Listen, man, I picked the right job site at the right day for this, man, because sometimes I go to job sites and it's what I call a dry job site with no food. It's not as good as a job site like this with food. So,
wow.
All right, man. So,
cool. Thanks for that.
Did we hit the topic? Did I blow over anything that I shouldn't have?
No, I'm actually curious. As what other contractors have in common with the way you do it. I'd be curious to see people in the questions. Obviously they have questions for you. I'd be curious to see how they do things differently. That's one of the things in the Trade Best Practice series, even from like your organizational little, what do you call that? Your shop, or I don't know if you call it your shop. What do you call your organizational area where you store all your stuff?
We just call it the shop. Yeah.
The shop. Okay. Yeah. I know we did that in the Trade Best Practice series. We were trying to feature like how different contractors do it. And it does change a little bit from place to place. There are some things that are pretty similar, but I'd be curious about that. But I always like how you walk us through. By the way, I'm sorry, another question I had, the way your clients and customers treat you guys, like does your reputation precede you to where they're just happy to have Nick Slavic painting and restoration with them, and they feel like it's a treat to have you working on their stuff, because they definitely treat you guys like they value you?
Well, so here's the deal. It seems like that. And whenever we have good reviews, we share them. So it's you may get a what is it called? A disproportional idea of what goes on. People do not believe it, but I am a bread and butter painting company. Like, yes, we are on a historic theater restoration. We have the muscles and the ability to do that. And we do historic restorations. We do all that stuff. But really, like 70% of what we do is somebody owns a house. They just need a painting company. They don't even know that I'm on social media, and they call me, and then I have to present a sales presentation and an estimate, just like every other painter out there. And we start the chain of trust from the start, where, collared uniforms every day. We got, logos that match and everything. We got clean vans. I have I take this tablet in with me and we print out an instant estimate. And then when my people show up, they're all uniformed, shirts tucked in. Josh, yes, Josh has even got his shirt tucked in. My cowboy.
Josh.
Oh man, that was a close one. If he didn't have a shirt tucked in, that'd be super embarrassing. So it's that chain of trust. And honestly, we compete for apprentices. We compete for jobs just like every other painting company out there. Like, people think that I have this easy run at it because I'm on social media, but people always forget all of this is for other paint contractors. Most clients, 95% of all my clients, have never heard of me and have never seen social media. So yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah, it didn't seem authentic to have the audience you have, for sure.
But I will say this, the majority of our work still comes from word of mouth. And, we always want to think of ourselves as like expert Facebook marketers and Instagram marketers, but honestly, if you talk to every painting contractor on the planet, somewhere between 50 and 70% of their work is going to all be word of mouth or referrals. And I know that, and I don't take that for granted. Like, we have to make some stranger leads appear out of nowhere, but we will not disregard that. And a testament to that is the other side of that. I don't want to downplay it either. We have a very good reputation here that we worked for a lot of years. We actually had a review in the last month where the start of the review was, I've been waiting a long time to get the opportunity to review Nick Slavic Painting and Restoration Company. Highest compliment I have ever received by anybody. And it's so humbling. It just bowls me over.
Wow. That's really cool. Very cool. Well, awesome. Thanks for giving us a sneak peek into what you do there, man.
Hey, absolutely. You're not going to leave without hitting us with a deep thought, Chris Shank. So
no, and I'm also not going to leave without saying we're really excited about the expo coming up.
You mean the exposition?
The exposition of education and trade show and receptions and brain melds and awards. We'll have the awards. There's a lot that happens at this exposition. Yeah. So we're excited to have you again. You're going to be given part deux of your modern apprenticeship. Yep.
Where I track every week of 2019, and I show you exactly what happened with all my human experiments. And now, like we mentioned last show, the only thing I've given this once, the only thing I didn't have at that time was my end of the year financials, and I actually share those at the end of this presentation for people what this is all worth. So
I love that you are so transparent. You give numbers, you show people. They're always like, well, no, I want the numbers, man. I want the real. Show me if this works or not. And you're like, all right, here you go. I love it.
Yeah, and then the questions start.
With that.
And then the questions start.
yeah, right. Okay. Yep.
Are you leaving without a deep thought?
All right. Deep thought of the day comes from Robinson Jeffers, and it is: bitter earnestness makes beauty. Bitter earnestness. Bitter earnestness makes beauty. Basically, when you see somebody fighting for something and they're earnest, almost to the point of hurting, that's what we find beautiful. Stories we find beautiful. When we go out and watch movies, we want a challenge. I was talking to my daughter the other day, and she was talking about writing a story. She said, but I don't want any problems. I don't want any stress in the story. I want it to be just a simple thing that I'm like, okay, well, tell me more about it. She starts building this story of this alien coming to Earth and everything. And next thing you know, the alien accidentally kills someone. The alien's in prison. She's sneaking him out. They make a friendship. He gets taken away early. They lose their friend. I'm like, whoa, whatever happened to no problems in this story? And I guess the point of this poem that I had read by Robinson Jeffers is the whole idea is we like the fight. We like the challenge. We like hardship and people overcoming that. Bitter earnestness. And he says that makes for beauty. So there it is. Deep thought of the day.
That's a very interesting combination of words. Bitter earnestness, man. I like it. There's a lot to unpack there. So you never disappoint. Thank you. It's going to be a busy March. It starts, in a week and a half with exposition. Yeah. And then after that, I get about 5 traveling dates back to back of taking this, Ask a Painter, and then the master's classes on the road. So thank you guys. You guys have been a big hand in facilitating that as well. So thank you, Chris.
Yep. Always happy to share your name with people for sure.
Awesome, man. Hey, thank you. Say hi to everybody at HQ, and we will see you all soon in the flesh.
Yep. We'll see you. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah. See you, Chris. Okay. So Chris Shank never disappoints. We are going to go over some basic job costing. A couple of weeks ago, I've introduced the benchmarks and the job costing, and we are going to. Chris Shank is messing with me down below. I need to delete his window from now on. Point of reference. So, so we're going to take a deeper dive into some job costing, and I'm going to show you a quick example of job costing for one person and job costing for a 10-person company. And this is when we go by industry benchmarks and we go by job costing, a lot of it works better when you have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 plus employees. The numbers become a little more standardized. The numbers get a little skewed when you have somewhere between like 1 and 5 or 1 and 6 painters. So I'm going to show you guys a quick example of how I used to job cost when I was painter one, the only painter in this company, and worked by myself. And I'll show you an example of how we do a quick and dirty job costing now. Now, the difference is these are kind of quick reference, large numbers, so I can bring them on screen. we're going to go in depth even farther. The actual job costing that I use for my company now has about 15 more steps to it because we want to get so granular because we want to answer questions. So I'm going to show you guys this. And let me know, guys, if you need sort of like larger stuff. And as usual, you can email me, nick@nickslavic.com, and I can send you any of the stuff that you like. So I use this big, gaudy American flag house as an example of the project. It's a memorable house. I did not paint it myself, but hats off to the guy who did. We're going to job cost this project together, and this is just an estimate. I'm just guessing. And I'll get to your guys' questions. I see them coming across here. I will get to those in a second. So we are going to talk about that particular project in terms of job costing. So let me pull up that sheet and you guys can follow along here. All right, here we go. I got my screen up here.
Pull it out farther. Like that.
And I'm going to walk you guys through some simple job costing here. And again, 2020 is the year of mastering the basics. We're going to take a step-by-step guide every week. We're going to introduce things. We're going to take deeper dives. We're going to pick this stuff apart so that 52 weeks into this, there's going to be a whole series of shows on different aspects of job costing and industry benchmarks. So we're going to talk about job costing for that job. Now, here is job costing in its most basic form for one painter. When I was a one painting company, there's two ways you can job cost. There's revenue per hour to tell you how you did, and then there's gross profit method. Job costing is basically a simple way to tell you if you actually made money on a job or how well or how poor you did. And it breaks it down to, did we order too much paint? Did we spend too much time? Did labor kill it? Did they take half the amount of time, but we ordered way too much paint? These are all simple questions answered, and we use industry benchmarks in accordance with them. So number one, we're job costing the American Flag House. This is one painter. This is Nick Slavic when he was the only person in his company out there doing it. We would charge this much for this house. Again, this is all just theoretical numbers here. You can see the amount of paint. So primer, 4 gallons at $22 a gallon. Top coat, 22 gallons at $48 a gallon. This is the cost of your paint right here. This material cost right now, which I have my cursor on, is a total of all this stuff. You take this number right here, 1,144, divided by your revenue, and that'll give you the percentage of materials that you have on this job. An industry benchmark is 15%. Now, the problem is when you're a one-person painting company, it's going to be skewed because normally labor is a larger portion and materials is smaller. It's important to track it, but it's not necessarily important to follow the industry benchmarks because remember, those are way more accurate for like 10-person painting companies. So now the difficult part of a one-person painting company is labor, because if back when I was a single painter, I didn't have a wage. I didn't have a set hourly amount. I basically had the money that I was going to make on the job, and it was my job to hurry up and get it done. So when I judge a single-person painting company, I judge it by revenue per hour. So I don't have a set wage. You basically just take your revenue, and I use a calculation where you take out materials, because when they pay you this portion of it, that's not revenue generation. You have to pay that back. So the basic revenue per hour model is you take this much, whatever you made on your estimate, you minus out materials, and then whatever number you have left, you divide it by how many hours you put in. So typically as an owner painter, I would have put about 60 hours into this one. So revenue minus your paint divided by 60 equals 77. So you've basically created $77 of revenue per hour after you've paid for materials on this particular job. Now, what I use this number for, the industry standard, you can see on the side, is give or take 55. It's going to be way higher with a single person painting company. I've seen this universally through most of the painting companies that I've talked with, where we are super thoughtful. We're the business owners. We're super incentivized to get it done quick. We are usually way better painters than most of the people we employ, or at least marginally better than the people we employ. So this is a pretty good number. If all your painters did this, you'd have a great company. I normally see this number a little bit higher. The only reason we can't use gross profit, because you can't really figure out a labor percentage on this. You can assign yourself an hourly rate. You can assign yourself 25 or 50 or whatever, but it's arbitrary because you're not actually paying yourself that. You get the proceeds of whatever's done. So if you guys have any questions about this stuff, we can go over that. Type it in the comments. Otherwise, I'm going to show you maybe we'll take a break here, and I will look over some questions here quick, and then we'll go to the 10-person company. So hello, everybody. Oscar, thanks much. Lacey, Oscar Gonzalez, hoping to visit soon. Yeah, that'd be great, man. Tommy, Eric, thanks for watching. Monty and Mary, always good to talk to you guys. Dominic, my good friend Dominic from Ireland. Always fun to watch Dominic. Pedro, thanks so much, man. Evan, do you use Surf Prep? I do. We use Mirka, we use Festool, we use Surf Prep. We use DeWalt, we use Milwaukee, we use Craftsman. We use all of it. So, all right, let's get back to all right. I'm going to bring up sorry, I'll take a second to bring up that spreadsheet again. There we go. Okay, so 1-person painting company. Now, 10-person painting company is going to be a little different, and we're going to assume that it's going to be the same house, but the owner does not actually paint. You have people out there in the field doing it. We rate this job by gross profit. You can definitely track a revenue by per hour number, but the problem with a revenue per hour number is it's only taking how many hours were spent on the job and calculating how much of that revenue was produced each hour. The problem is if you have 2 insanely high paid employees, working on that job, the revenue per hour number is going to be the same, but the gross profit number is going to be way different than that. So if you have 2 young apprentices making, $8 or $10 or $12 an hour on a job like that, your revenue per hour is still going to be the same as if one person did it, but then your gross profit will be way better. So revenue per hour, to me, I don't use the actual number as much as I use the difference in the number from job to job. If you have like that last job here, we got a 77 on that. If the next job, we got a 43, you'd be like, okay, we know we can't just judge this number perfectly, but something was way different about this job. Did we miscalculate the amount of paint? Did it take way too much time? Was there more prep than we had thought? There's a whole bunch of variables that you can start digging into, and I use the change in the number just as much as I use the number. All right, so let's dig into the 10-person company here. I rate these jobs by gross profit. Now, this is the quick and dirty version of this stuff. When I was a single painter, I used to have a paper duplicate form. The estimate would be on the front. When I was done with the job, I flipped that thing over and I wrote revenue. I tallied up all my paint. If I used a whole bunch of extra materials, I tallied it there. I added up my hours, and that gave me my quick revenue per hour. And every one of my old estimates actually has revenue per hour on the backside that I use to track that. Now with this, we use a different number because revenue per hour, I used it solely up until 2018, and I was tracking revenue per hour. And sometimes the revenue per hour would drop far, and I'd be interested. I'd get the crew together and I'd say, what's going on here, guys? We're not performing. When we actually did the gross profit method, the job was actually a really good job. It's just revenue per hour didn't track. So sometimes they diverge, sometimes they converge. I track them both, but gross profit is way more accurate. And this is where the industry benchmarks come in. You can see in this column here, the goal, these are industry benchmarks. And the 2 most important numbers that people need to track are material percentage and labor percentage. People track a lot of stuff, office supplies, mileage on their vans. None of that stuff matters to a painting company at this size. Your two biggest expenses are always going to be number 1, labor, number 2, materials. After that, it's minor stuff. You can tweak. If you get an insanely good rate on office supplies, you're only going to bump it 0.1%. If you do really, really well with labor, you could move anywhere from 5 to 15%. And that's where the low-hanging fruit is. So 10-person painting company, same house here. We charge the same amount of money. Theoretically, we use the same amount of paint. So here's the materials. And it's still 20%. We still have the same amount of revenue, same amount of materials. Here's where it diverges a little bit. Field management. So we have 2 production managers in my company that basically I sell the jobs, I hand it over to them, they set up the job, they make sure the paint is there, they get it scheduled, they check in during the job, and they close it out when it's done. They actively manage every one of the jobs. Now, this is a little bit controversial. I put them above the line in a kind of a material cost because they are associated with the jobs. It's hard to directly associate every minute, every hour to a particular job like you would a painter, but without them, the jobs wouldn't get done. Most of the industry moves them down below into overhead. I like to keep them up above. It's a personal preference. It doesn't matter. I budget 5% for field management. And based on that, we just assume that there's about $289 worth of their time put into setting up, seeing the job through, and then closing it out. And then with labor, we assume that maybe we put 2 painters on here. a craftsperson, and an apprentice. That's a typical format in my company. The rates are right here. And what you're going to see a difference here is more hours. And this is what I found between single person owner operators versus a model with a lot of employees, which is the owner operator is super efficient. So you can see here, the owner operator will typically put in, 10 to 50% less hours than their painters. So we have 60 hours total for the owner operator, and we have 80 hours total for the craftsman and apprentice. Not necessarily bad. Not everybody moves at the same rate, but you can see now that there's an hourly rate attached to this stuff because we actually know what the rate is, and that's the wages. Now, important, a lot of people's numbers are skewed because they don't take into account the burden of employing people. The burden is all the extra things that go into employing people. An hourly rate is one thing, but as we all know, there's insurance, there's unemployment, FUTA, SUTA, all sorts of other things tacked onto it. Generally, as an industry standard and a benchmark, I use 25%. So if you hire somebody for $10 an hour, it probably costs you $12.50 an hour just to employ them. And that's what the burden is here. You can see that I took this amount times 25%. That gave us our burden for a total labor of this. I calculate labor with the burden in because that is the true cost. A lot of guys will take that out and then their numbers are skewed. The jobs look a lot better. That's the total cost that goes into it. So that's what I use. Now, the difference here is you add up both of those numbers. That will give you your total labor. And then you take labor divided by your revenue, and that will give you a percentage of that. Now, we track everything by percentages. You can see material came in for this job at 20%. The industry average is 15%. Now, if you go over, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Some jobs take way more. If you've ever done a stucco house with locks on, you will use way more materials than labor. But if you charge accordingly, the labor will make up for it. Field management, I use 5% as an average there. And labor, we want to hit 40%. And on this job with these two people, if they did it in 40 hours with no callbacks, they've only used 37% of their budget. So they actually overperformed on this particular job. Now, on this job, though, maybe we ordered extra paint, maybe we used extra. When it all comes down to this number here, this is the gross profit dollar amount. This divided by your revenue will give you gross profit percentage. This is a magical number right here. The main thing that goes into it is what's the percentage of materials, what's the percentage of labor, and you're trying to hit 40. 15% materials, 40% labor, 5% field management, 100% minus materials, minus labor, minus field management. Hopefully you're trying to hit 40. You want your gross profit to be 40% of whatever you charge for that job. That will leave you enough for overhead and owner's pay and then profit at the end if you do everything right. Now, you can see on this particular job, maybe they used too much paint, or maybe we miscalculated the paint, or maybe there was just extra and they actually underperformed. Labor actually did their job. They did 3 points under the goal. The field management, who's in charge of ordering the paint, went 5 points over. So actually, in this scenario, if this was a real job, my production manager did their job 5% worse than I wanted them to. The field crew did 3% better than I wanted to. So when you come down to this job, if you don't track this stuff, you'll see this number just a little bit under your goal. And you might be screaming at the painters like, hey, my God, get your act going here. We got to move faster. We got to do this. And in reality, they actually did their job better than we planned. It's the field managers that did not order the right amount of paint, or maybe they, I guess you could even track it back to sales too. I might have not seen a whole bunch of areas that had rot or prep, and I may have underestimated too. So you never know. But this is the magical number here. 15, 40, 5% field management. Take it all away from 100% and you should be able to hit 40. So let's go through some questions here. All right. Jonathan Knotts, absolutely, man. You're welcome. Let's see here. Dan Chase, hello from Wisconsin. Thanks a lot, man. Ryan, hello to you too. Michael, love Michael Crane. Hopefully I'll be seeing you soon, Michael, either at Expo or at, I got two Wisconsin events actually coming up here. And I also have the Minneapolis Sherwin-Williams Pro Show. So Robbie, thanks so much. Sandra, how you doing? Let's see. Michael Crane. I'd like the data points of how many painting contractors just fell into owning a business versus how many set out to. Well, I think this is sort of one of those self-evident sort of things where go into a class of kindergartners and just say, hey, who here is dreaming about being a house painter when they're older? Raise your hand. And I think we would not be surprised that no hands came up. There are basically two origin stories of paint contractors. It seems like either your dad did it and introduced you, or you did it in college and eventually you circled back to it. And obviously there's other stories there, but those are the two main ones. If you ask somebody, it's almost a parlor game. They'll fall into one of those two things. So Michael, thanks so much. I appreciate the comment there. And I think that might be it for us today. As always, I'm an open book. My master's classes deal heavily in this. I'll be debuting actually another brand new master's class on how to use industry benchmarks and job costing to help us change this industry. And I truly believe 2020 is the year of mastering the basics. We do it here in my company. We're doing it out there. And I honestly believe job costing is number one. If every single painting contractor did that in the United States, you would see an increase in consistency, quality, knowledge to help you make decisions in your company. You would provide a better product to your clients. Your employees would be happier because you know where the blame lies when something goes wrong, and you would have a more profitable company. And then using industry benchmarks for the rest of your company besides job costing will actually tell you if you're making money or not, or how good you're doing. So, all right. Oh, yes, Ryan Gorel. Did you say we could get the info? Yes, I'm going to type my email address here. I'm typing email in here. So if you email me, I will send you an example of industry standards and job costing. And that should pop up in the comments here in a little bit. So, yes. So Ryan, email me and I will send you stuff. I believe this is the best thing we can do to raise the standards. Dan Chase, my wife and I just recently went on our own and are tracking all jobs on paper and on QuickBooks. Any tips? Yes. Job costing. Track how many gallons of paint, what you pay for the paint, and total material cost on every job. Track how many hours you used on any job, and take notes. If a job was way off, say we missed a whole bunch of areas that needed prep, or the client changed the color at the last minute and we needed to do a third coat instead of a second coat. You don't necessarily need to analyze all these numbers right now. The best thing you can do, and I wish I could go back and do this more accurately from day one, almost 13 years ago, is track materials, track labors tightly. Just gather up all your invoices, do the little back of the estimate thing, and just track them so you can find trends. It's so important. Let's see here. What are you using for ceiling paint? Pump and tip size. Sherwin-Williams, CHB, any Graco 390, any Titan 440 is a perfect one. And most of my guys, what tip are you guys going to use for ceiling, Joe?
Probably a 517.
517, the standard of the industry. So smaller projects possibly pop into the 4s. 517 is a workhorse. And if you're doing new construction, 1221, big guy, so you get a nice big pattern, something like that. That's if you're going all day producing. You got thousands and thousands of square feet. We only have about 1,000 square feet. 517 is going to put a nice amount of paint on this stuff. So let's see. Yep, that's about it. Okay. Hey, Aaron, thanks a lot, man. Okay, guys, that's it for me. After Ask a Painter every week, I'm on family time. These guys are going to rock and roll. They're going to knock this ceiling out. They're going to have fun with their families this weekend, and we will catch you guys next week. We will catch you at the PCA Exposition in about a week and a half. See you guys later.